evening and welcome to Dig Deeper with Malice. Tonight on Dig Deeper we're going to be discussing the world of kink and BDSM, once thought of as a psychosexual disorder in which a person's sexual arousal is dependent on fantasizing or engaging in sexual behaviour that is atypical or extreme. That's paraphilia. Well, times have certainly changed and images of kink are appearing more and more in the mainstream. Tonight I'd like to visit this world with a few of its players. So a big bent welcome to Lisa Sky, comedian and kinky person.
Hi there.
Hunter, or possibly Master Hunter.
All of the above.
And Dylan, welcome. Thanks for joining me. So firstly, when you guys are referring to the way you like to play, do you talk about BDSM, which kind of seems to be either bondage, discipline, sadism, masochism, or dominance submission? Or do you just talk about being kinky? Anyone?
I just use whatever term, because it's all about communication. Hey, yeah. I just use whatever term the other person's going to understand. So if I say BDSM and they say, what? I just say, kinky stuff. And I just kind of use, I tend to erroneously use everything as a catch-all umbrella.
Yep.
So
It depends upon your audience.
Yep.
Honestly, if I'm not going to say to somebody that I teach classes on perversion because it makes me sound like I have a degree, which I do not. I can say that I do.
Yeah.
I'm more likely to say I teach people how to tie each other up safely or hurt each other safely.
Yep.
Either way, it's a lot of conversation, mainly about consent and then going from there.
Let's talk about a few terms you might hear within the BDSM world. So can you explain what a top and bottom is? Because in the gay world, these mean something else, of course.
Oh, you want me to go?
You go, yeah.
Given that face. Top and bottom, certainly in the gay community that I've encountered, is usually top being active in sexual interaction and bottom being passive.
Yep.
So far as BDSM is concerned, it's kind of similar, but a top is usually a shorter amount of time, but being the dominant person in that interaction.
Okay.
And bottom being still catcher. Don't be a pitcher. You are.
do you know anything about baseball?
No, I made it up. Read about it
the
on
other one
internet.
who does the thing with the
guy with
that
this
baseball
thing
guy
with
or
the
that
cricket bat.
baseball
Yeah.
guy.
They catch some stuff, I hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
You don't know sports.
Sport, well, sexy sport, surely. So, so here's where I get confused. What's the difference between a dom, a top, and a master?
But you're all of them at once.
I am all of them at once. Dominant is more about a dynamic.
Okay.
So dominant usually is partnered with a submissive, hopefully, or a switch. That can happen too. So dominant party being top of the food chain.
Yep.
Submissive party being lower than that. Master, in my vernacular, is someone who's done this for a long time and has earned the right to have that name. So they're usually very good at what they do.
Okay, so you've kind of graduated.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
There's
Having said that, you get a lot of 34-year-old guys who jump on
22-year-olds.
22-year-old guys and call themselves like Master Trent.
But you don't see a lot of them in the community.
that's true.
Yeah.
Okay,
They
so-
don't last long.
Okay,
With their nylon rope from Bunnings.
Yeah, no.
Anyway.
Really? Yes, I've brought. Someone brought in some rope. And
No, they're cotton rope.
as Lisa just said, it's definitely not the nylon variety because you don't want it to hurt that
Oh, see,
much.
I
You
like
know?
the hemp rope. I like the scratchy stuff.
Hemp rope is because it's
Okay.
got teeth,
The
so it
abrasion.
grips onto each other itself really nicely.
All right, so it depends on your kink, I guess, doesn't it? Good.
And budget.
Yeah.
Hello, we'll talk about that too. So on the other side of the coin, we have the bottom sub slaves. So is there much difference between these three?
I'll let you take that one.
A bottom is usually the opposite of a top,
Yes.
so that might apply particularly for a scene and may not have dominant submission in there.
Okay.
A sub may be someone that chooses to submit either for a scene or as part of a dynamic, and there's a choice in going into that space and then coming back out. Whereas a slave, it's a very different headspace and it's a point of surrender and that's it.
Interesting. Okay, right. So there is quite a difference then, I guess.
Yeah.
It's I guess it's interesting to talk about labels because I love labels, but I also kind of tend to use them interchangeably and things as well. So, I mean, I tend to have a lot of relationships, even though I'm more dominant than anything. I tend to have relationships with other dominants, which means that there's no kind of psycho power dynamic, but there's just us tearing shreds into each other.
That's interesting.
Yes, it is. So yeah, labels are really great, but the worst thing in the world is when you're at a kink club and someone asks you, are you a top, bottom or switch? And you answer, and depending on their answer, they decide whether they're going to keep talking to you or not.
Oh wow, really?
Because everything should still be kind of, like it shouldn't be, labels shouldn't be a full stop, they should be a beginning of a conversation.
I was going to say, yeah.
The label on a box and there's a definition in there. Ask what the
Exactly,
definition is.
yes.
Yeah, okay. Interesting. So it sort of seems like there needs to be complementary kind of roles mostly, but you were just talking about having two dominants.
Yeah.
So
it can happen.
Yeah.
And then there's the game of, a friend of mine uses the term switch fight. But it helps
really?
if
Loser
one,
bottoms.
Yeah, and the loser bottoms to the other one. That being
nice.
said, if two people are tops and they really don't want to lose, that can take a very long time. A very, very
But see,
long
that's the
time.
thing. Like with
Or
my
heavy
play,
implement.
I have relationships where I we're kind of bottoming and topping and like kind of changing the dynamic during the scene.
Wow,
kind
really?
of really fluidly like that. And then there are ones where we just don't have. It just happens we both identify as dominants, but in our relationship we don't have labels or roles or anything. We just have a lot of really rough, fun play.
okay.
It's like, it's more sensory than kind of... And I think people can get really caught up in that. It's like, well, I'm a dominant, therefore I don't want you to hold me down. Or like, I don't want you to scratch me. But scratching can be really fun. It does not, it doesn't have to be a submissive act. Ladies. I'm basically only on here to like hunt for trade.
To pick up trade.
Twitter at the Lisa Sky, Facebook / the Lisa Sky, Instagram the Lisa Sky.
Okay, so obviously you're identifying as dominant, not that we like the labels necessarily.
I tend to just say top because it's easier.
Okay, and Hunter?
Identify as dominant, master and top.
Okay.
And alpha and
All round fun
pretty
guy.
much all of the above.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Dylan?
Slave and
Yeah.
pony.
And I identify as a switch.
Great.
Yay!
I tend to switch, but it's just easier for conversation again. Like,
Yeah. What's
like
funny,
Dawn
I've
said.
heard that switches, yes, that's a thing, but people do tend to go towards either side a bit. I think like
Not
one
necessarily.
side. No, you
It's-
haven't found that?
There is a weird thing around, certainly in the BDSM community that I've encountered, where people just believe that you haven't made up your mind. And you have to be one or the other.
Okay.
And like the bisexual,
I was
that
going to
they're
say,
not meant to
I
exist.
have had this, yes,
That's right.
also. It's fascinating stuff, and we're going to be talking more BDSM next Dig Deeper. See you then.